All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Wasn't expecting to be in this big a room. Glad I got enough people to make it not feel so empty. I'm Damon Shelton. I am the motion capture pipeline TD for Naughty Dog. And today I want to actually spend a lot of time going over the part that no one ever gets to hear, the actual processing of the mocap, the unsung heroes. You see the actors and everything, and then you see animation, and there's never that in between. So a lot of work goes into it, and I just want to shed some light on it and share the knowledge of what I did for The Last of Us and how we want to move forward. And hopefully you can glean some information to help out your pipelines and whatever you want to do with the mocap after that. So I will begin. So we did the introduction, so here we go. A little bit about my background. Why is it not changing? There we go. No, it's not? Okay. So a little bit about my background. Been at Naughty Dog for a total of about 6 years now, on and off. Worked a couple other places in between. And I've worked in film and animated films and mocap films and was an artist previously. But and I have that all in here, but just a shorter talk than I plan to do this year, so I'm going to just kind of skip through a little bit of that. And the information will all be on the talk, so if you get it on the vault or anything afterwards, you can always go look that up. I'm going to briefly point out performance capture and the basis, but since that's what everyone usually shows, I'm just going to kind of glean through that really quickly and get to the tools and the pipeline. Here we go. Come on, you can do this. Okay. Sorry, we've been having difficulties with the Surface Pro today. This is not cool. Okay. So in these steps, of course, there's a performance capture, and you have the actors in the stage. And quickly, in our process, we use a Vicon optical system consisting of 94 cameras, capturing at 60 frames a second. And it can be here somewhere. Terribly sorry about this. Okay, here we go. We do real time on the stage so that we can actually make sure all the data lines up with the digital sets. We have 55 cameras assigned to that real time, so we get plenty of coverage, and you actually get a good idea of how that's going to look within the actual system. And then the volume itself is 13.5 by 9 meters, which is a good coverage space. We're looking at building bigger ones, so because there's always running and lots of running, and need more space for that. For The Last of Us, we didn't do any finger or face capture. It was all hand keyed on that stuff. We are looking, of course, at new technologies for the future and always trying to expand our tool set, but for The Last of Us, that was not the case. This is terrible, sorry. So I'll just show the obligatory picture here. I'm going to skip over the video, it's kind of long, but you've gotten to see it. And just a quick example for those that are shooting motion capture and don't have a real, you kind of understand it, but how it actually works. The biggest point is that all the reflective markers have to be seen by at least a couple of cameras before you get accurate data. So when planning out your shoot and how you're going to and what move sets and everything that you actually want to shoot, always keep in mind these few key things. Try to make everything as visible as possible. So sticking them actually in a real couch is not going to help out on the back end because it is motion capture. So if you're not seeing the data, you're not getting the data. And that was a key point, talking with the team to make sure that everyone is keeping all of that in mind to help out us on the back end. And a big one that I work with the animators a lot on is making sure we're planning ahead of time. With the cinematics, it was great. We actually finished shooting earlier than planned. We always had a shot list. We always worked together to make sure that the stage was prepared and had the shot list beforehand, and we knew what sets we were building. And we have several note keepers that we take to every shoot to make sure everything is covered, including markers falling off, the person lost their hat, any of that kind of data that we know to plan for when we're processing the data. And when you're actually making your selects, you know if that data is going to be good or not, and if it's usable. So I will skip ahead here. So now I just want to jump to the tool set. So initially with data selection, that's the whole process of actually picking the takes you want processed. Narrowing that down to as little bit of data as you really are wanting to have is very key in getting a fast turnaround. And that's one of the biggest things is the animators love the high quality data, but they want it as fast as possible. And so during the data selection process, it's always key that while you're shooting, you make sure you take note of which takes you like best, and so that when you go back and review those later, you make sure you jump to those first to make sure that is exactly what you want before you spend time looking back through every take again. Because if you shoot 8 hours day, 8-hour day, that's a lot of takes. I think we've broken a few stunt actors doing like 400 takes in a day, but. So the initial system that we had for data selection, of course, was get it fast, brute force, and it was just an Excel sheet that had just all the take names, and animators actually just marked down what they wanted as they were going along after we shot. Slow, well, it worked its purpose, but definitely a lot slower process to get that in the animators' hands before they could actually make their selects. So what I did, I actually wrote a GUI-based system that took the notes that we did on the day and actually added those to a large database, including linking all the video reference for the takes, and made a quick system for the animator to just load up in Maya and actually review the video ref from all the different camera angles and everything. Now I'll show you a quick video of this. If it plays. All right, yeah, we're playing. So in this system, we actually wrote a custom tagging system that lets us tag all the data by shoot dates and a lot of information, who the actor was, the characters. So they're quickly able to search down and filter this large database of 40,000, 50,000 takes of data. So they quickly get to what they want. And then we did a custom video player so they can bring up all the video ref, actually set their ranges so they can just review that section they want. And no one took advantage of just picking a small selection. They actually just take the whole take, but they can actually set the range and request just that selection. Inside the UI, we had just a quick request solve portion that's up top. So as you review all the different takes, you can choose just request solve that notifies the mocap team, and then it starts the whole process kicked off, and it automatically will copy all the data from the capture folders into the tracking folders, which is what I will cover next. Yeah, I'm doing. And so just for speed purposes, this definitely helped increase the amount of time it took to actually get the selects made and into our hands so we could start processing, which turns around to within, the same day, they're able to start selecting. So by the end of the shoot, they're selecting data. And part of that is it takes all the notes also from the Excel sheet. You notice down in the right, you can see the comment section. And that gives also the information for the mocap team that when they go actually use this tool to start the whole process for a take that's been selected. It gives them all the notes. They know what happened, who's playing who, and can actually link that. And then once, for cinematics, time code is everything with the audio. So once they start processing, the start time code and end time code that they actually processed gets put back into the notes inside of the comment section, so that when animation goes to use the data, this also is our anim library. So they just, once the data is processed, it gets put back in, and they're able to go right to the takes that are processed and bring that into the animation rig. Data cleanup. This is one that definitely doesn't get a lot of coverage, and I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that hate tracking. It can be brutal, but it is a very key part. I've actually written some custom scripts that help speed this process up a lot. There is still the usual manual work that has to be done inside of this. which definitely becomes, when there's occlusion, you have to gap fill that data. When there's swaps in the labeling, so the labeling doesn't understand like what marker was what, it gets confused, you have to go manually undo that for the most part. There are some scripts that handle some things, but there's a lot of times where it's just a mass of 5 people crawling on the ground, which we had a lot of with the infected attacks. I'm sure Vince can point that out. And so, there is still a lot of manual cleanup that has to be done, but at the back end, I actually spent a lot of time writing these tool set that actually saves me quite a bit of time once I've cleaned up a lot of that manual work. It's usually, I call it my fast clean. The idea behind it is it does all the gap filling it needs to, but based off of slowly building up rebuilding the entire marker set from what's actually visible, all in steps. And it just runs by itself and usually gets you about 95% there, and you may still have a few pops you missed or something like that, and you just clean those up. So I will show a video of this, and this is of a simpler form of some of the stuff. And of course, this is Ellie falling off a ladder, and so we have our different actresses. So what this is showing is inside a blade, which is what we shoot with as well for the Vicon system. This is the labeling that the system sees as the marker cloud. Each marker is labeled with a unique identity, and when they swap, you fix. And this shows off some of that as well. There's a few spots I'm going through and finding the start point and swapping those back and making sure that once that data is clean, then the script will actually do its job, and I don't have to spend a lot of time selecting markers, selecting markers, and filling. So I will let this play for just a bit. And so as you see, there's a lot of occlusion. They're falling into the mat. Luckily, it's not for a long period of time, so I don't have to hand place some markers to help guide everything. But once I cleaned up all the swaps, then I just run my script. I'm sure many people have written a lot of their own to try to speed all this up. And I'll run it eventually. Sorry, can't scrub in PowerPoint. So here we go. This is all real time, so I'm not actually speeding this up. I probably should have to save a little time, but so now as she falls, most of the data is cleaned up pretty well. I think there's a pop I miss, and then I just go clean that out. And this saved a lot of time, especially inside of with The Last of Us, because we had a lot of attacks. For those that played it, we shot people actually all on top of Joel at the same time, which I can show as well, which is quite a fun one to see. I won't show the whole video so I can move forward with the next phases of solving and retargeting, but this just shows this was a standard day of takes. And what I like to show here, just once it gets to it, is, some data, it's not so bad, but the guy on the bottom is not so fun. And so just showing all the work that has to go into this. So when you're shooting these takes, I just want y'all to keep this in mind, that that's just the longer it's going to take to clean up this data. And that's what's left of Joel to create into a person. So we had many takes of this. And I will go ahead and jump to the next slide. So solving and retargeting. Solving and retargeting is really just the overall process of turning this into animation data from this marker cloud. The pipeline that is used a lot is usually going into Motion Builder and using their solvers and retargeting. It's fast, it's reliable, it's been used for years. We do solely work in Maya at our office, so I wanted to develop something that kept us in the same package, and I didn't have to spend a lot of time moving the assets out of Maya into Motion Builder or other packages. The other part is I'm an old school character TD in Maya as well, so I know all the tools inside out, and it's easier for me to write tools and use Python and do everything I need to make that work. I am a strong advocate of always recreating the actor data first. That gives you your ground truth, and once you have that data, you can actually reuse it all over the place. Some pipelines, not ours, but some pipelines would go straight to the characters to make it faster, get that turnaround, and then you're stuck retargeting data from an already retargeted data back to other characters, and you're just getting that extra level of loss when there's big differences. So the idea is have the actor, and then you're going from the ground truth out instead of taking the long way around, which adds up more error throughout the whole system. This also made it much faster to reuse the data as male and female infected and bloaters and everything else that could come eat your face. So this also ties back to that database tool set I showed. Like, all this data then gets dumped back into the database at this point, so we can easily, the animators can easily go back to these takes that are just the actor solves and request it be retargeted to someone else, and that gets sent back, and then we just batch it through the retarget system. And if it's already been done once to a certain character, we'll copy the keys over automatically that were set in the retargeting settings so that everything will have the proper reach points and stuff without having to redo that. So during the retargeting, I will jump to that now. So with the design of the retargeting system, one big challenge you always have in retargeting is your characters usually don't match your actor at all. And we had that case for everybody, including our main actors, and Joel's skeleton was pretty much every other male in the game, just with some scale. So we kept the proportions for, animation reusage. And we had a lot of different size stunt actors, and especially when you get into someone playing a bloater that's the size of a bloater, and then they play a clicker, that's a big difference to try to retarget the data to, but that was the core of the entire design of this tool set. So, okay. The other is just the reuse of the data across projects, because you have walk cycles, you have run cycles, crouching, hiding, cover. That's usually just human motion, and we can reuse that data across projects if need be, but we usually do reshoot everything because the animator wants it a different way than what we already have. But it is simple to actually just run that back through onto another character. The solving system I wound up choosing is a global optimization solver. So the idea behind that is it's not 100% real-time fast, but it is fast enough that for the quality level that we're gaining, it was the right choice in this case. So with that, I would jump over to the retargeting. Another couple key parts of the retargeting rig set is that it was fully scalable and can be scaled on the fly throughout the entire animation. So if you're dealing with an actor that's much larger, you can actually scale them down for the performance when the actual timing and distance that they've traveled or any different objects they're picking up doesn't actually matter that much, as opposed to the poses and the movement that you're really looking for. That way you get an easier retarget, I should say. So the reach points aren't as far. And just let y'all read through this just a second before I move on. This is just a quick overview of the other key parts. And so in this, I would just show some of the older data that we were getting. And this is kind of, it's not to down Motion Builder or anything like that, but this is just some of the things we've always dealt with that we try to, fix however we can and get that extra little bit, 10% and everything, and you wind up with differences. Hello, why'd you move? There we go. Play. You can play for me. It's okay. Oh, that's great. I'll just point out the images because video doesn't want to actually play but change pages for me. So, so just in this image itself, this is the actual actor data solved, and the red point cloud around that is the actual tracked data from the real actors. So this is just showing off the accuracy that we're getting before we even remotely put this on a character. And goes back to my point of always having that data and the ground truth to make sure you're accurate, and it leaves less room for big bugs to come up in the data and get kicked back all the time. Just wish the video would play. Do this one more time. You're not even the slide I'm clicking on. Did it freeze? Hey, we got something. And so, like I said, Joel was everybody in the game. So I don't have a clicker skin that I actually put the data on. But in this take, this is just showing some of the key features as when you're just dealing with rotation and you're not dealing with actual IK kind of endpoints for contact or different portions, you wind up through the ground. And in the system, I'm able to set a few keys really quickly before I even solve the data just by looking at the point cloud data. And then have that ground contact and the hip contact so it doesn't pass through the floor. So even once I give this to the animators, they don't have to deal with spending time doing that. They can go right to doing the parts that they love doing. And like I said, once the keys are set for once, then it automatically will pull those keys over if we decide to put on another character. It just basically replaces the character. And so, let's see if we can get it on the right. It's not even going on the right panel I'm on. Okay. So the actor solve rig itself, I want to point out a few features of it. It's designed, if you've ever worked with Motion Builder or Human IK, you have a characterization step where you can define these joints or this part in the system. I actually wrote a Python-based one that handles it that way in our system because we have different names, we have everything across the different projects. And all I have to do is get a new skeleton, make sure the names are correctly pointed, and then it will automatically build the rig. It doesn't matter the number of spine joints or neck joints. The only thing that matters is that correlation between the known joints and what I'm trying to feed it. If they're missing an arm, that's fine too. It knows not to build that. Since it is standard Maya rigging tools and not a set like bipedal setup, I can actually reuse this on animals or anything else that I want to use. It just takes a little time to set up the skeleton and make sure that the rig will build properly. If you're going to an animal leg, of course, it's a new rig time to actually write it, but for the most part, we just hand animated those. Kind of hard to mocap a bird, but I'm sure some of us had tried it. I have. Or a giraffe. And the big one is you can save this solving template, and the idea behind it is the solver I've chosen will allow for translation in the solve, which most don't, because it actually can cause a lot of major issues to counter. But using that, I'm actually able to take a solve rig I've already made from one person, and I get a new actor, and it basically will pull that skeleton into place. And then I convert that to scale and remove the translations, and then I have a lockdown kind of scaled rig for a new actor immediately. I don't have to spend time like hand fitting the skeleton, which is a lot because we use I think we had 7 different actresses played parts of Ellie alone, so we use a lot of different actresses. And once you define the template, each day, of course, we still do the ROM, and you just go in and tweak the alignment of the markers to that skeleton. So it actually is very fast to just start solving again without spending a lot of time in setup. show that again. I'll go to the retargeting section. Yay! Finally at the cool stuff. I got a few minutes. Here we go. In the retargeting, the toolset has quite an extra few features that some others don't. A big one is I'm automatically recalculating all the center of mass based off of the hip, like pelvis height, so that if a person bends over to actually reach and pick up something off the ground, if they're shorter or taller, it actually automatically adjusts their positioning so that they're weighted correctly and don't lose balance. So the animators don't have to spend time actually reanimating that. Of course, the alignment is just, once they're in the same pose, I can put the actor data onto any character. Sorry, running out of time, hurrying up here. The other big feature of the retargeting system and keeping it separate from the actor solve is I can actually retarget hand-keyed final animations from one character to another as well. So entire animation movesets can just be batch retargeted over to other characters. We've utilized it, you have clickers and a bunch of death moves. It's much better to just retarget that data over without having to reshoot and reprocess, and just so that the woman can bite Joel in the neck instead of the man. Using those key features, I'm able to actually define different reach points, like the head is important in a neck bite, or the hands are important because they're picking up the items to put in their backpack. This is all quickly keyable, and I didn't for The Last of Us, but I can give this whole tool set to the animators to do this processing themselves, so they can actually animate the rig on the fly during the solve to actually let them reposition it how they want and actually get a better solve to the data instead of just IK handle pulling. I would go ahead and jump at least to the videos here to show some of the retargeting happening. Play. Okay, we're playing. Okay. As you see, the gray one is actually Troy Baker, and Joel, you see how much shorter he was for the entire game. So every shot with Troy was an actual retarget, and it's because the character was kind of designed and done before we had our actors. And in this, you see it looks more like an animation rig than some sort of crazy technical, like, solving rig. And up at the top, you can see my solving retargeting kind of button set there. And a lot of it is just quickly scrubbing to frames and just hitting a hotkey, really, but just does the different reaches. So the right hand's important, the left hand's important, the spine's important, the pelvis is important because they're sitting in a chair. And I think I am almost out of time. So what I'm doing here, just to show, is you see Joel's hand's way below Troy's hand, which he's grabbing a door handle, which is an important height. It's already been built and measured. And then I'm able to just quickly set keys for that. And during the batch, once it's resolved, it will actually adjust the whole body so that that hand lands on that however it needs to. As you see, the hand now matches the actual global position. What's nice about this is that if the character has much shorter arms and a person, say, puts their hand on the table, eventually it's going to reach a point, if they lean and try to keep their hand on the table, other systems will actually pull the hand off because they've reached their extension of their IK. This will actually automatically adjust the spine or the clavicles to actually keep that hand because that has the most importance. And it's all animatable, all keyable, which then gives us a better performance. And I will jump to one really quickly before we finish here. Sorry, I didn't get through everything here. But if it will play. But this one is just showing actually taking data from one character to another and the differences in that. So this would technically be our clicker to the female clicker, and it won't play. Hold on. There we go. And so as you can see, I can just scale the actual, what would be considered the actor solve at this point. And it's just a skeleton-to-skeleton alignment, so the solver doesn't have to be on the character still to go to the other character. And so this is where you would actually scale it so that you can have easier retargeting so that they can grab the shoulders and the head bite and the different stuff. And so it saves the animator a lot of time of having to do this, especially in just a standard IK-based rig. I think I do some crazy stuff with the pelvis and the head, but once we have all that data, we put it back in that same system, and the animators are then able to just pull all this data right back onto their rig, and we have a built-in layered system. Before Maya had layers that we still use. That gives us a whole other skeleton that can live drive our actual animation rig without having to bake all the data. Once we have that, the animators can easily animate on top of that and then just reuse the data. And I think we wound up with well over 25,000 solves and retargets inside of The Last of Us, which is a lot. But I think we used all of them, I'm hoping. And I think that is the end of my talk. But I just want to thank everyone for coming out. We can do a Q&A after this. Thank you.